Hey guys, how you doing? Thanks for clicking onto this channel. Thanks for clicking onto this video, and I just hope that you guys are doing well. And I just got a few things to say. I promised to start this series. This is the beginning of it. Today's video is the beginning of the series that I promised I was gonna start. But I just want to say a few things. I think I'm gonna change up on a lot of I'm gonna change up on the way I want this channel, the direction I want this channel to take. I was gonna try to do like debates with people and all that, but I've realized that's not the right way to go. Some of these people, it's like when I think I've just had that epiphany that it's like the one Oprah had when she was interviewing all these racists on her show, remember? And then she realized she was just giving them a platform. That's the same thing I've realized with some of these people, some of these YouTube channels. We are a people who've always been at conflict within each other. Remember, just imagine if Kwame Ture, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther worked together. Just worked together, and everyone came together and did things together. Something you can even talk of Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois and some other African Americans that didn't like Marcus Garvey because he was this, a short, uneducated Jamaican dude who was making people love him. Within our community, hate started. So a lot of African Americans actually worked towards having Marcus Garvey deported out of America. And this has been happening over and over and over again. And I've noticed it's the same sort of a scenario that's occurring among YouTubers. Some YouTubers are just destructive towards Africans, continental Africans and diasporan Africans, or ADOS, whatever you call them, coming together. There's just been destructive. And my question is starting to arise, like, what's the end goal? What are we trying to achieve at the end of this? At the end of all this, is to see black people become great all over the world. But how do we achieve that when some people are becoming destructive? Some people are sort of thriving on negativity. There are channels that have been created to just thrive on negativity within our community. And that's not the way to go. So I've looked at I've taken something from Dr. Cloud Anderson, who on this channel, I'm gonna start that Powernomics, because I've realized what he talks about and what I talk about is almost the same. So I've been inspired by him, and I'm gonna start a series after I finish this about just how we can transform the economies in Africa, from starting with poor people, and just and how we can transform that. Without, some of it shouldn't even involve the government. That's what I think. Because when we involve the government, that's when things go down. So maybe we should try this route where the government is not involved. So I'm gonna try to use him a lot, because he's actually really inspired me. If you've never heard of Dr. Cloud Anderson, please check him out. There's something he said about when he was asked why he doesn't debate people. And I'm gonna do the same thing. You don't have to debate people. You might see me maybe chime in with my 2 cents in a discussion, but it's not gonna be about debating people, because it's not taking us anywhere. So I'm gonna focus. I looked at there's a lady called Dr. Annette. She was from America, but she was born in Europe, from African immigrants. She's highly educated. She's a doctor. She's got a PhD. Started in America. Now she's living in Kigali, in Rwanda. And I see this woman, what she does. And every time she's on a live session, you should see a screen. it's littered with people trying to listen. I was even hearing names like Shaniqua trying to come to Africa and be into like road construction, you know, and that just inspired me. So there's so many ADOS out there who are not listening to some of the negativity and some of these people with negative views, you know, that are just so focused on taking on the journey and claiming their land or claiming their share of Africa. And I think that's going to be my focus, because some of the people are just, you know, and some of this discussion is like, because I've spent the last few weeks just listening to the discussion, it's like it's not even worth actually discussing this, because some people are good Samaritans and others are what you can call capitalists, you know. So the good Samaritans, they're thinking the capitalists are there trying to sort of abuse the Africans when they start up the businesses and all these things. But the thing is, so the good Samaritan would rather go to Africa and give a taxi driver an extra $10. And he doesn't see that someone who's business minded, who's an entrepreneur, you can call him a capitalist or whatever, would rather go to Africa and employ 20 people and give them $2 every week for the next 30 years. There's a big difference. You know, giving someone $10 today is not going to make any changes to their lives. And this is just an example I'm giving. But giving them $2 every week for the next 30 years is definitely going to put a dent in the outcome of their wealth, in the creation of their wealth, in the outcome of their life. You know, so it's like we have two different views, and people are arguing. We're not gonna see each other. We're not gonna see eye to eye. So the best thing anyone can do is to involve people that are like-minded. In whatever you do, whether you have a channel, try to involve people that are like-minded. That they are looking at it from, they want to take your route, but maybe with just a little bit of like a different view, but they want the same ending. You know, some of these people, they want the same ending, but it's like in between, it's so fuzzy for them because they can't see between their rage and all these things. It's just ridiculous. So you know what? I'm going to say I'm not going to be part of that, and I'm just going to focus on this channel. And people that are going to follow me, they're going to see what I'm doing. They're going to hear my points, and we're going to work together. You know, it's like what Dr. Hannah does. You know, she does her own thing, you know, and that's what she focuses on. And this is where now my channel is headed, and I'm just very you know, looking forward to it. I'm very happy with the content I'm going to be producing, and I'm very happy to the point where I've come to this conclusion where I say, you know what, I'm gonna go it alone, you know, and I'm not gonna do all these debates and all this stupid stuff, because you know, some people just destructive. But anyway, so the topic today is, why is it that African Americans, or ADOS, mainly African Americans and continental Africans, hate each other? You know, I'm going to try to break this down, because personally, I don't even think it's hate. I think it's a misunderstanding, because there's so many African Americans where people meet or have read stories of Africans go there. Whether they like it or not, they will find themselves hanging around African Americans, you know. And that's just like the normal route or the normal occurrence that happens. So, and then when you start talking, you realize the differences and the misunderstandings. So it's not like people hate each other. This is my conclusion. But I'm going to tell you why we don't have a high view of each other. You know, we have a very low view of each other. Because I'm going to tell you, as an African education, I don't care whether it is university, primary school, pre-primary, or whatever, teaches us to hate each other, to hate ourselves to begin with, to just hate ourselves. African education does not promote Africanism. If anything, it promotes Eurocentric. You know, it's Eurocentric views that you are studying. It's Europeans this, Europeans that, Europeans this, Europeans that, to a point where African history or African heroes are looked at as savages. I'll give you, I think I've said this in my previous videos, where I got in trouble for, like with my teacher, I'll get in trouble because they'll keep saying Shaka was a savage. And I'll be like, no, he wasn't. But because how are you going to call Alexander the Great and call Shaka a savage when Alexander did more damage than Shaka did? That to me doesn't make sense. But this is how our history has been manipulated. So our history is looked at as we don't even have a history. And our history begins a few years before colonialism. It doesn't go further back. It doesn't show our greatness. It doesn't show the things that we've created. It doesn't whatsoever show anything. It's more like Europeans come to Africa, and all of a sudden Africans become important. Before they were just nobodies. That's how the history and everything we learn in Africa is showcased. When you and then I started to realize, even when you go to university, let's say you talk about any topic in science, first it tells you how things started, and all these things they talk about, it's about let's say you're talking of even just velocity. It will start with Greek, Plato or people like that, and then it comes to Galileo, and then so it's all European history. And in our head we're just thinking, oh wow, it's Europeans that did this. But the reality is, people all over the world were doing the same things. The only things they didn't write it down. That's why people these days, people get surprised when they go to the Dogon and find out the Dogon knew about the Sirius star, and they're thinking, oh no, you can't do it because there's no way they will know. Even Africans will argue that the Dogon, someone must have taught the Dogon, because that's how low we think of ourselves. This has actually led to remember what I always say, low racial esteem, and this is what has happened. Our education system needs to be changed. And I'm glad I can see in some African countries they're doing this. In Tanzania now, you gotta speak Swahili. And this is where things start. This is where the changes start. We need to change our history. We need to change even the way things are taught. We need to live in something there to say, you know what? Africans were doing it. We have to do that. We have to start teaching our kids. It's the same thing, like if you look at the Haitian Revolution, most of us will just think, oh, they practice juju, and because now we've been given, we've been Christianized in a way, we think that's bad. We don't see that as the greatest victory for human rights in the history of the human race. We don't see it that way. We just think, oh, they practice voodoo and that's what they want. But if voodoo is gonna stop me from being enslaved and give me freedom, I'm practicing voodoo. This is where we've got it wrong. Again, it's our education system, and religion hasn't helped. That's why you see a lot of people go to Africa and they say there's white worshipping, right? Because that is all part of the package. Education, religion, and all this, and putting up a white Jesus and all those things. They've been part and parcel of that. Whether these are the holy people, these are the great people, and we have to try to be like them. We have to strive to be like them. That's what our education system teaches us. Because imagine, and in my series, I'm gonna talk about this lady called Kimpa Vita. She became a Christian, so her Christian name was Beatrice Kimpa Vita. She was in Angola. She was the first black person to start, after slavery, to start teaching about black conscience. She said, she became a priestess, and she said in a vision, she saw Mary and Joseph appear to her, and they were not white. And she was shown heaven. And in heaven, there were people, not just white people. There were black people, white people, and other races in heaven. For saying this, the people that brought Christianity to Africa bent her on the stake. You know, they brought the European way of doing things to Africa, of burning people, which actually messed up a lot of Africans at that time to see one of their own, because she started having a following get burnt. We were not doing that kind of savagery in Africa. People became fearful of Europeans when they saw what happens to Beatrice Kimper-Vita. But remember what she said. She said, this is very important. She said Joseph and Mary appeared to her, and they were not white. Heaven was full of all races. Okay? And she also said slavery was bad. And she was trying to wake up black people consciously to start defending their land and kick the Europeans out of their land. And she got bent for saying Joseph and Mary were not black, for saying heaven was for everyone. So it shows you what sort of Christianity or religion these people are trying to sort of inculcate onto us. And they've won, and they did it very well. You know, now that is similar to what African Americans learned. You know, where, you know, before Europeans showed up in Africa, you guys were Tarzan and all sorts of things, you know, which is not true. And to prove that it's not true, I would like you to Google, anybody here, to Google Benin City, anywhere you want. And I'm going to talk about this, but it's just a good point here that I put it in so that we know how these lies have been created. Because I want you to read something about Benin City. This was in 1691, and I'm going to read a script from this article. 1691, the Portuguese ship captain, Lourenço Pinto, that was his name. This is what this man observed about the great Benin. You know, he said, where the king resides is larger than Lisbon. For those that don't know Lisbon, Lisbon is the capital city of Portugal. And at this time in 1691, said the palace of the king in Benin City, which used to be located in the northern part of Nigeria. The palace was bigger than the capital city of Portugal at that time, which is still the capital city today, Lisbon. All the streets. I want you to hear this. And I'm just going to give you a break to find this article. Benin, just Google Benin City. I think it's the first or second article that pops up. You know, this is not African nationalism or whatever. This is not an African person who was saying this. This is a white person. This is an observant. The first person to get in contact with people of Benin. You know, this is what he said. All the streets run straight, and as far as the eye can see, the houses are large, especially the palace, which is richly decorated and has fine columns. The city is wealth and industrious. It is so well governed that theft is unknown, and the people live in such security that they have no doors to their houses. I just want to repeat that part, guys. We've been lied. We've been taught lies, and unfortunately we've believed this. You know, your history for those African Americans did not start with slavery. You know, and you were not living in trees, as it has been portrayed. I'm not, this is not a black man who said this. This is this man, Portuguese ship captain, Lourenço Pinto. You can Google him up, and things will come about what he said about Benin City. And I'm just going to repeat this. You know, the city is wealth and industrious. It is so well governed that the theft is unknown, and the people live in such security that they have no doors to their houses. Because there was no one, this is before Europeans, there was no one coming to raid other people and put them into slavery. There was nothing. They did not need doors to their houses. There was no rays and all these people coming there trying to rob you at gunpoint and killing each other. There was nothing like that. Okay? Now, this is how at that same time, 1691, this is how London at the same time is described by Bruce Hossinger, a professor of English at the University of Virginia, as being a city of thieves, prostitution, murder, bribery, and a thriving black market made medieval city ripe for exploitation by those with a skill for the quick blade or picking a pocket. This is what Bruce Hossinger describes London at the same time. You look at the two descriptions. One is in Africa, one is in Europe. So when people tell you you were sleeping in trees and all that, it's not true. But that's the education system. Education in Africa is not different from the education they give black people in America. Same thing. Religion is the same thing. I heard, I think it was Chris Rock made this joke. Like on Sunday, it's funny how Christians go to different churches. You know, black people go to a black church, white people go to a white church. But the most unfortunate thing is that black people are the only people that go to a black church but worship white Jesus. So even in America, it happens. Okay? And then, the other devastating thing to us is the media. Devastating thing to the way we view each other is continental Africans and diasporans, especially ADOS, especially African Americans, is the media. You know, and this is all over the world, guys. The media has portrayed black people in America as savagery, as savages. You know, you see crime, whenever they mention crime, you see black people. You know, whenever they mention clean streets and everything good, you see white people. Whenever they mention anything that's bad, you see black people in movies, on the news. And these images are repeated over and over and over again. Marcus Garvey said something about the media, and I'm going to read what he said. If you show a people their potential using imagery and sound, which are the two languages of the unconscious, you can take the slavery out of the people overnight. You see? But white people have flipped this. And they've shown us what? They've shown us only the bad things. Every time something bad happens, that's what we see in Africa. That's what we see. That's what we see. That's what we see. And whenever we see white people in America, we see all these great things. So when we are trying to come to America, people ain't coming there to want to live like African Americans. They're coming there to want to live like white people. And this is why I think even sometimes the conflict begins between maybe continental Africans and African Americans. Because when Africans go there, they'll be willing to go live in a white suburb. And they'll be willing to go there and communicate and talk about, you know, or even sell products because they don't understand the history. Because our history has never been taught. The history of slavery has never been taught. The history of slavery has never been taught in Africa. And slavery did not just happen in West Africa. It happened in Central and Southern Africa. Over 6 million of the 12 slaves came from Central and Southern Africa. That's why when you hear people like Mike Tyson say they're from the Congo. That's why sometimes their DNA says they're from the Congo. Chris Tucker from Angola. A lot of African Americans, the people that demonstrated in the thing, I think it was the Stono Rebellion, they were all from Congo. So there's a good population of people from Congo. That's why these days I worry when everyone is just saying, oh, West Africa, West Africa, West Africa. And when people go to Rwanda, they say, no, that's not us. These are the same people that don't know nothing. You know, Rwanda or Congo, they were all part of the, Congo Empire. And when these slave raiders used to come, they just never used to go on the beach. They'll go inland and take people from everywhere. Okay? So when you hear a Bantu, it's a big group of people, and I know there's a big population in Africa, within African American communities who will trace their DNA from these areas. But the thing is, Africa is your home. So these are the two things: education and media. It's the same thing. When they show Africa, they show you as a place of kids with bees or flies on their mouth and starving. That has been the picture of Africa to the world. That's why, even where I am, every time someone says Africa, people just want to donate. Africans don't need your donations, please. In Africa, and I'm glad that some of you guys now are starting to see that Africa has got cities, and Africa is actually developing. You're starting to see the positives of what's happening in Africa. They got roads too, they got KFC if you are into that stuff, so they got everything. Okay, so there's two reasons, too many. I think too many things I can point out that has made us not like each other. So what has happened is the African doesn't want to be the African American, and the African American doesn't want to associate himself with the African. No one wants to associate themselves with the losing team. Nobody wants to do that. But if we can come onto a table and have a serious discussion, and this is what, after the end of this series, I'm going to talk about this. We can have a serious discussion. We can reconnect. And we can say, you know what? We've been played here. Let's reconnect and let's work together. And I hope this is what we are going to start doing. And one thing I've also, the third part I've noticed is this. It's like, so when you're in Africa, you are trying to emulate white people. You're trying to be as white as possible. This is why you see Africans, are dying in the Mediterranean and everyone. Because what we've been taught is that our place is crap and their place is rich. When the reality is Africa is rich. So we've been given this illusion. You see the tall buildings, the clean street and all that stuff. And then you see the poverty, the misery in Africa. You even forget that there's actually very nice areas in Africa. You don't see that. So we've been sold this illusion. So we are trying to be as close to white people as possible. But the thing is, even like African Americans, there's only about 13% of wealth that's left that's not white. So everyone else has to fight for that 13%. So it looks like when Africans come into America, it looks like they're trying to take part of the pie of the 13%. And this is, I think, this is what I believe is causing to some of these conflicts. Because I've noticed it in Australia that Africans get more into fights with Aboriginals. And it's the same thing. Because Aboriginals are used to being second black people, or the only black people, and then they see other black people come in, and there's already like one of the MPs, she's like a Kenyan woman, she's managed to make so, and there's very few Aboriginals in parliament. I think there's only probably like another Aboriginal, so they feel like they're fighting now for the same position. So you hear, when you are in Australia, you hear more of, go back to Africa, from Aboriginals, who are also black. Because I think we are both trying to be close to white people. Because you know what? Where white people are, that's where the money is. And this is why we tend to fight, among ourselves. Because instead of us realizing, you know what? Our continent is actually the richest continent in the world. So instead of me fighting you, why don't we bond together and let's develop our continent so we can have even more land and more things, and we can have even a bigger a piece of the pie. We haven't realized that, but I'm glad we're heading in that direction. The second part is we actually don't speak the same language. And what I mean by that is not as like you speak whatever Yoruba and I speak English. No, it's not like that. We both sides we speak English, but the meaning of things, because of our cultural differences, is not the same. And I'm going to ask each one of you to have, whenever you're talking to an African, or whenever you're talking to an African American, or any person in the diaspora, to please feel free to ask, to say, what do you mean exactly? Because someone is saying, oh, do you want smoke? And I'm going, dude, I've never smoked in my life. I hate smoke. Get that smoke away from me. but that's not what they mean. Smoke means something else in American slang. It's something like when you look at, I watched the video of Watermaya and ES, and Watermaya goes to ES and says, you need a man to own you. I think ES is smart enough these days, and she has African experience. She's lived in Africa long enough to know what he meant, but still deep down, because of her American culture, which there's nothing wrong with it, a woman being owned by a man, that's something, but in Africa, it's not owning as in the way it means in America. In Africa, it just means, you need a man to take care of you, to provide for you, to do what a man is supposed to do, to love you, that's basically what it means. But obviously, and I hear these things and people getting upset, especially on YouTube, and people start making videos on it. Oh, this person said this. No. Let's be willing to ask about what they actually mean. So something I heard, even Art Kathy posted something about an Ethiopian lady that said black men are with their crap, white men are better. And this is what we've been taught. I've even seen in Africa, I've seen prostitutes sleeping with white men for free because they just want to sleep with a white man. I've seen this. Because we own a motel. My family owns a motel in Africa. And I saw these things, and we would talk about, oh yeah, it's a white man, and these white people get a pass. Even myself, I was in Africa, and I went with my cousin. We wanted to do something where we said, we had our shorts on and everything, and we tried to go into this nightclub, and we were not allowed. And then we got back and told the white guy who was with us, say, you try it. And he went there and was allowed in. That's the brainwashing. But for me, I understand where these things they've come from. But if you are African American, you're not going to understand that, and otherwise you're going to get very angry. But so this is why we need to sit down. We both need to calm down. I know a lot of things have happened to us, and sometimes we are already up here, man. Something happens, we are attacking. We need to calm down, and we need to talk to each other, and we need to be willing. I would like all of us to be willing to say, what do you mean exactly? Or when you visit some of these countries, go, okay, why do they behave like this? Try to understand it. Because they haven't had the American experience. They haven't seen what you've seen. They don't know that. And this is why we need to come together. Because we have one enemy. Okay? This is why we even be nice to change what is shown on the media. And this is why I was looking at Chadwick Boseman. This guy has only done black movies. I heard even a story where he left one movie because of how they were trying to portray black people. We need more actors to do that. And we need to encourage our kids to learn more about Africa, wherever you are, whether you are African American, whether you are a diasporan African. We need to start putting our kids onto learning more about Africa. My daughter just taught her teacher about where I come from, Zambia. She wrote a whole pamphlet about Zambia, about the culture, about the food, about this. And the teacher was surprised that she did it and gave her a good grade for it. She got like 5 stars for it. 5 gold stars, and she's a little kid. She's 11 years old. But because I try to put that in them, whenever I see negativity being spoken of about Africa and shown, I go home and I find a YouTube video from Watermaya and Miss Trudy and all the other people that are ES, and I show them this is the other side of Africa too. Okay, so I don't have that mind, that view stuck in there. I want them to see the other view as well. And we need to be doing this for the next generation. So, we don't speak the same language. Let's be willing to say, what do you mean exactly? Because that way we're going to understand each other quicker. Don't just hear something and run with it. Oh, he said African men want to honor their women. Nah, that's not it. That's not the truth. These are the 3 things I've realized that has affected our relationship. Education, the media, and us not speaking the same language. But the most important is education and the media. So these things need to change. Okay? But before I end this video, I'm just gonna say be wary of anyone, of any YouTubers. If you are in the diaspora, if you are African diaspora, or if you're African American diaspora, or if you're just ADOS, you know, be wary of any person, black or white, who's trying to prevent you or trying to encourage you to not visit Africa. You know, that's just be wary of those people, because some of them are visiting Africa and then they'll tell you not to visit Africa. But when they have things happening in Africa, you know, and then they're gonna be here trying to be either American patriotic or whichever country. I'm European centric or whatever stuff like that. Be wary of those people. That's very important for a lot of ADOS. I'm gonna say, and listen to this very carefully, because this has been scientifically proven, right? One time, they put a pregnant goat in an electric cage, and every time this goat would try to touch the wiring of this cage, she'll get electrocuted. She did that a few times until eventually she learned that whenever she touched it, she experienced pain, so she stopped. Okay? When she gave birth to a kid, I think that's what you call a baby goat, this baby goat never touched the fence. Never. How did the baby goat know? Because of the mom's experience. DNA, our DNA carries more than what we know it carries. Not just the ATC, the ATGC, whatever peptides. It's not just that. It carries more than what we think it does. There's a lot more information. Scientists are always finding out. They're realizing that just from one DNA you can get so much information. Okay? And the reason why I say this, because our ancestors, I know, we don't know their history. We don't know the history of our ancestors, because they never said anything about slavery. And in a way, us not knowing the history, and this is why this series is going to be very important. Because the next thing up, I'm going to talk about Africa before slavery. Or I'm going to go ancient Africa, long, way back, thousands of years. Okay? But the reason why I'm saying this is because we've tried ourselves as black people, whether it's ADOS or continental Africa, we've actually demonized our ancestors by not knowing what exactly was happened during slavery. And this is why I'm going to try to deconstruct on this channel. You know, but one thing I'm going to tell from the two slaves that I've found where we can get information. One is Kujo in a book called Barakun. If you've never heard of this book, please find it. It's called Barakun. When you listen to Kujo, and I want you to not to read it, to listen to the audio, because of the way the language they've used in the audio is just brilliant. It's genius, in my opinion. You know, you listen to Kujo. This man has so much suffering, kidnapped when he was 19, put onto that ship, got to America, and lived a miserable life. Eventually, he got freed. His life was still miserable. But in one of his cries was he wanted to touch that African soil again. He wanted to go back. He was talking about his mother, about the girl he was going to marry, you could hear it in his voice. But the reason why I'm saying the other slave is you can look at it as Ibn Said, was also kidnapped, eventually freed, and he was educated, and this is why he was writing. But however, he was writing everything in Arabic, so people didn't understand. But today you can read about his stuff. Ibn Said, you know, both of them, they were longing to touch the African soil again, to feel it on their feet. Now that is the, imagine what sort of what information they've passed to people who are living today. ADOS, that information is in you. And I've heard people that when they touch in Africa, it's not everyone, But for a lot of people, when they touch in Africa, they feel something, and I believe them. I believe, because when you have that DNA of longing to touch the soil in you of Africa, and when you eventually, you are the generation that goes there and touches it, you're gonna feel it. And this is why I say, be wary of people discouraging you from visiting Africa, or bringing up all this unnecessary stuff. Oh, Africa is tribal. There's tribalism everywhere. You know, if you are in America, there's Democrats, there's Republicans, there's the Crips, there's the Bloods, there's there's Libertarians, there's all sorts. We are all tribal. You know, if you go to England, it's called the United Kingdom. But don't call it Welsh English. They'll punch you in the face. You know, but they work together. Same thing. This is also happening in Africa. Some people even tell you, like, oh, you have to belong to a political party for you to get to doing business. No, you don't have to. And also, like, oh, when we go there, they look at Africa, white people, better than they look at black people. True, because of the brainwashing. This is why what I said, you have to understand it, because we've been brainwashed. So when we see a white person, and I'm gonna admit it, I can admit to that. You know, I grew up and anyone who's gone through an African education will tell you the same thing. We look at white people as having money until you travel. Until I came to Australia, that's when I realized there's a lot of poor white people. Okay? But when we see a white person, and for someone who's never left Africa, this is why you see, like, you get along a lot better. You have a better understanding when you go to Africa, and there's someone maybe who started outside of Africa. Maybe as a person you're gonna meet, or you're gonna realize that your interaction will be a lot better. But for other Africans, it's just the education. But you need to be there and let them see you, let them talk to you. That's how change starts. You can't say, oh, I'm just going to show up when they change. That's not how it starts. You got to show up. The reality is you have an advantage just from your accent. And that's how. This is where it's going to start. It's only that at the moment, for a lot of these things are changing. If you go to South Africa, this is why I encourage a lot of ADOS to visit South Africa, because it's not what they tell you it is. Remember, South Africa is not America. South Africa majority are black people. White people are a minority. It's not like in America where white people are the majority. You know, so the experiences are different. Just from the airport, you know, I got in an Uber and the guy goes, "You wanna pay the white man 20%, or you wanna pay me?" I was like, "Bro, stuff that. Let's go. I'm gonna pay you." You know, and you're gonna hear this because they have a different experience, and that's what I'm saying. Be patient, but show up. You know, don't listen to people that say Africa is tribal. There's tribalism everywhere. And when you go to Africa, you realize that you go to any company, all these big companies, they employ everyone. They just don't employ, or if you're in Kenya, they only employ Kikuyu. Or if you're in Zambia, they only employ the Tonga. Or if you're in Ghana, they only employ the guy. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And obviously it's talk. It's just like, you know, within African American communities, some people have a negative view of the ghetto. I've heard this. People don't want anything to do. They don't want to go there. They don't want, you know, there's people like that even in Africa. They don't want to associate with this particular tribe, and they just don't. That's just them. But when it comes to most governments in Africa, they're promoting everyone. The reality, when it's time for elections, everyone goes back to their base. You know, so if you are, let's say you are Kikuyu, you are in Kenya, you are more likely to go to your Kikuyu people. But when they're elected, they are working for everybody. You know, go to Kenyan Airlines, they just don't employ Kikuyu, they employ everyone. You are qualified, you got the credentials, and, you know, this is wherever you are, it's about who you know sometimes, not what you know. You know, and you're going to experience that anywhere in the world. Okay? So let those people telling you African is tribal, or you gotta join the politics, or it's corrupt. This is what I've noticed. I live in Australia, right? I've spent a few years there. So I alternate between Africa and Australia, okay? And the most corrupt industry here, and this is a better country than some countries, I tell you what, it's a better country here. You know, again, on so many different levels. But even here, the most corrupt industry is the construction industry. So when one tells you, oh, if you want to go to Africa and construct roads, it's very corrupt. Construction industry is corrupt anywhere, everywhere. in the world. It's corrupt. It's about how you navigate. But there's also countries in Africa that you can start with. Countries like Botswana, Rwanda. Where corruption might not be as rampant, but you have to realize some of the corruption is just like the police officers are underpaid. And this is why we need to show up and create jobs. And once we create jobs, we can have a bit more say about things. So first, I just want to say, with the corruption, we can pick countries that are where corrupt is very minimal. And also, you can go to countries, even the countries that are corrupt, but you can stay away from corruption. Right now, a lot of people are going to tell you Nigeria is very corrupt. Strive Masiwa, and I'm going to do videos about this guy who's a billionaire in Africa. He's in telecommunication. He started his business in Nigeria. This man today could have created multi-trillion-dollar business in Africa. But a lot of times he walks away from corruption. He could have bought, I think it's Safaricom in Kenya, but he walked away. He could have bought another telecom company in Tanzania, but he walked away. However, when you hear people say Liquidcom in Rwanda, in Botswana, in Uganda, they're talking about this guy. In Nigeria, he even managed to get someone go to jail, a Nigerian governor, who he put in to ask for, and I'm going to do a story about that. To ask for you to be considered to have a telecom in Nigeria at that time, you had to put in like $300 million, right? But they decided to skip him and accept other businesses when he actually had a better sort of a proposal, because he said no from paying this governor $3 million. But so he lost that contract. However, he kept fighting and fighting and fighting. Not only did he get his $300 million back, but he also managed to get this man in jail. I think he went to jail for 10 years. And this was done in Nigeria with Nigerian courts. So when people tell you just corruption and be scared, don't listen to them. There's good people in Africa too. There's good courts in Africa too. You don't have to belong to a political party. You can be independent. But as a businessman, there's so many businesses I can tell you in Africa that are operating, that are independent, and the only thing they do, they support the government of the day. The Chinese, they do the same thing. In Zambia, a few years ago, there used to be a different political party. The Chinese were supporting them. They lost, another political party came in, the Chinese were just supporting those people. So you don't have to belong to a particular political party. You have every right to be independent and do your business without getting involved in corruption. There's a lot of other businesses where even corruption is very minimal. Farming is one of them. But what I would ask most of you to do is talk to these government organizations when you go there. Don't talk to people. Visit the Ministry of Agriculture. Visit, all these ministries, and because some of them, there's more help from these ministries than the local people even know. Someone was telling me in Ghana, the guy didn't even know the government was giving out tractors, to hire tractors for almost close to nothing. They didn't know this until like 3 years into their business. That's when they found out, because they were only asking local people. Go to the ministries. For African Americans, for ADOS, anywhere you are. Why Africa? This is what I'm going to tell you. Especially if you're African American. You've been in America for 400 years. They've done all sorts of things to do. At Tulsa, every time you've tried to start something to create generational wealth, you get bombed. And all sorts of things happen. And right now, with the things that are happening, I just heard something that said $16 trillion America missed out from making because of racism. And also the reports that are saying by 2053 or something like that, African homes wealth will be about zero. So, why Africa? I'm going to give you an example of how people make money. If you go to I was watching this, every time I hear people from Texas, some people have ranches, some people have this. These things have been given to them from generation to generation to generation. That's why they say 83% of American wealth is already locked into white hands. But where did this thing start from? It started from slavery. You created this wealth for them. I know a lot of people say, our ancestors built this nation. And it's true, your ancestors built it. But they don't own what they built. There's a difference. My grandfather built things, and I managed to travel and live the life I live right now because of him. But the thing is, he built those things. The people that were building, they were paid their minimum wage or whatever it was that he paid them. However, he owns this stuff. There's a big difference. So you can say, our ancestors built this, but the reality is they don't own it. Black people, enslaved people built the White House, but they don't own it. The land in America was worthless. It only became of value when slaves were on that land. The problem is, it wasn't their land. Even up to now, people are still working for their 40 acres of land and a meal. It hasn't happened, and it will never going to happen. America is willing to give Japanese reparations. The same people that bombed Pearl Harbor, but it won't give reparations to people that have worked, in my opinion, the most patriotic group in America, African Americans, because they fought almost in every war, from the Civil War to liberate America. In the World Wars, they fought in all these wars. Without being given anything. They fought in World War I, World War II, and when they went back home, they couldn't even get a job. That's patriotism at its best, where you're not expected, you're not given anything to go and die for a country. So why don't we change up? Instead of following the same route you followed for 400 years, why don't we change up a little bit? The Jews did the same thing, because wealth is created when countries are poor. Believe me. When you look at there's something the Nazis did in Germany. They collected names of all the rich people in Germany. This was the 1930s. Today is 2020. It's almost 100 years since that time. But if you look at the list of rich people in Germany, it's still the same. It hasn't changed much. It has changed by that much. Only these tech kids that have come in maybe have created a bit more wealth. But otherwise, it's the same families that were rich then, it's the same families that are rich now. The reason why I say Africa, right? Africa is the richest continent in the world. Some people are even asking, what has Africans done for African Americans, for us? No. You going to Africa is not for you to go there to help Africans. It's for you to go and create generational wealth. And in you doing that, you are helping Africans at the same time. But more importantly, you are the person gaining. Look at Rick and Cynthia from the bag. They've created employment, but at the end of the day, it's them, it's that family that's going to make real money. And this is why Africa is providing for you. The fact that in some countries, now it's all over. It's all over. I heard Rwanda will be giving a citizenship to African Americans. Kenya, I think, is about to start doing the same thing. Ghana, and this is going to happen in all African countries, or most of them, where they'll even be giving you free land. So come here, grow something, and start something. You can create the same thing they created there when they had our ancestors, enslaved people working for them, creating wealth. You can come to Africa without exploiting anybody, but creating wealth for not just for you, but also for the continent. The Chinese have done it. Some people don't know this, but there were slaves in America in the 1800s, 1889 in San Francisco. There was tens of thousands of Chinese slaves, but those slaves still sent money, still went back and helped China become what it is today. And China wasn't a superpower then; it only became a superpower now. Some people even say, "Oh, the Chinese invented gunpowder." Yes, they did, but they never used it to make guns. They used it to make fireworks. So they didn't have a military superpower then. Because they were enslaved by the Japanese. If you don't know, now you know. The reason why they started eating all these bats and all this stuff is because the Japanese in Manchuria, in China, they used to rape these people, enslave them, and make them work for them, and give them the food to the Japanese, while the Chinese starved. And this is why they resorted to eating all sorts of animals. If you didn't know, now you know. However, today no one can mess with China. We can do what the Chinese have done. If you want to be selling stuff, why not open up a factory in Africa? If you want to be selling clothes. If you want to be making baby dolls, black dolls, or whatever, why not open up a factory in Africa? Where you can make that for 20 cents and sell it in America for $20. There's nothing wrong with that. Because paying someone $500 or $200, $500 in Africa is going to change someone's life. But in that same process, you make whatever thousands of dollars you do. 1 acre of a chili in Africa is going to give you $10,000 profit. If you sell it, if you grow it in Africa and sell it in America or Europe. If you got 10 acres, that's $100,000 for you. But in that same process, this is after you employ people and everyone is paid in Africa, and you still make that profit. Wealth is created when countries are poor. It's very hard to start a business in most of the developed countries because everything you can think of, someone else is doing it. But when you go to Africa, the opportunities are endless. This is why I say, think of Africa and be wary of anybody who's trying to tell you stupid stuff about, oh, Africa is tribal. If anything, in most African countries, if they'll kick you out with some of the things some of these guys say. Because we are trying to build a better Africa. Most governments are trying to squash all that. Just realize there's tribalism everywhere. Democrats, Republicans go to the same company and work together. If they do that there, it's happening in Africa too. Kikuyu, Luyo working together in a company. These things are happening. So don't listen to people that are trying to be, oh, Africa is tribalistic and just bring up the negatives and the negatives. Please don't. I know some of you already feel it in your heart. I know some of you, it's in your DNA. Like I said, from Kujo in Barakun. I think his real name was actually, Kaluya or Kazulea or something like that. That was his African name. Ibn Said. These enslaved people who were only longing to touch Africa. This is not to say you have to move to Africa. No. You can just visit. Just remember, Marcus Garvey was not trying to say everyone move to Africa. That was the media that said that. Marcus Garvey was just trying to connect every black person to Africa. And that's what we need to do. There's no point in you visiting all these other places and not visit Africa. All I'm saying is, if you don't want to move there, that's fine. If you want to move, that's fine. But make Africa at least one of your bucket list entry. To say, I gotta visit Africa. And the opportunities there are endless. Go there and look at the opportunities. It's an opportunity that Africa will give you that opportunity to create wealth. You can go there and start a business with $20, $30, $10,000 and you can start something. Go there, do your research. The Jews did the same thing. Every time they got persecuted in Europe because of their religion, the Theodosian Code, the Spanish Inquisition, and all this stuff, they just left. They left, went somewhere else. They went greener pastures, peaceful, and sometimes will be like poor countries, and then they'll go and be part of that and build it up. Once we can develop Africa and connect and we create the wealth from here, we own mines, we do this. The population of African Americans in America is only about, I think, 13%. Right? The Jews are even a smaller population. However, the Jews have more influence in politics than in my view, than African Americans. And you know what? Because they're donors. And what I mean by that is that they get their voices heard because of money. So, in numbers, you will be bigger than some populations. Right? But at the same time, when you create even wealth, you have a louder voice. And I think this is where Africa comes in. So, I'm just going to do a recap. We don't hate each other. There's just a misunderstanding. Mainly because of education, because of what the media shows us. And I'm going to ask every ADOS, say every time you are talking or you are hearing Africans talk, please ask what they really mean. And I'm going to ask for something for continental Africans. Ask what it means. Don't take it in your own interpretation of things, because there's a thing called slang. And there's also like different understanding of the English language. So let's not let that be a barrier from us communicating. Okay? And also I'm just going to say, be wary of anybody discouraging you from going to Africa. Because let me tell you something. Secretly, they're doing something. You can't be a patriot of a country that is oppressed and keeps oppressing your people. Be wary of people like that. Okay? Some people say they're B1 and whatever. Stuff that. Let's just say, what do we want in the end? Personally, I want a prosperous black people. That's it. Anywhere in the world. And when we all realize that's what we want, then we're going to start working together. We're going to stop making the mistakes that our ancestors did. You know, the Malcolm X. Even the people that set up the African Union, because they got divided as well. These people, this group wanted this, that group wanted that. And in the end, we are where we are. And if we keep bickering and this, even if we have different views, let's just bring those. Some people are military, some people are business, some people are this. If we bring together, we create something stronger. Thanks for watching my video. Please click. Thanks for clicking. And look out for the next video of this series where I'm going to talk about just the history of Africa before slavery. You know, but I prefer to start with this so we understand the reason why sometimes it's hard for us to communicate and sometimes we think we hate each other. I don't think we hate each other. We just have a misunderstanding. Now, starting from that point, I'm going to delve deeper into finding out whether Africans sold Africans and the effects of slavery on all of us. And also, we're going to talk about colonialism. This will be the series. I'm also going to encourage everyone to look up Dr. Cloud Anderson and Powernomics, because that is what this channel is going to be based on. We're not going to just talk about it. We're going to show, we're going to act on everything. We're going to be talking about it. Thank you for watching and stay safe. Thank you. Bye.